It all started as a typical story about a wife who was being unfaithful. I was going on a business trip, but then I got a call saying that I didn't have to go. So I went back home and parked my private plane in the hangar. I decided to take the rest of the day off and surprise my wife by taking her out for dinner. I definitely surprised her, but she surprised me even more. It turned out that as soon as she found out I was leaving, she made plans with her friend and left work early. When I saw her car and another unfamiliar car in the garage, I started to worry. I cautiously entered the house, and just as I suspected, there were clothes leading to the spare bedroom. The door was left open, and there they were. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, who I loved, trusted, respected, and admired, was doing something like this. I had mixed emotions, but I managed to keep my cool. I formed a plan in my head, but I had to resist the urge to act violently. When he decided it was time to stop, I interrupted them. They were shocked to see me there. I asked my wife who the man was, and she tried to come up with an excuse. I could see the panic in his face as he realized the truth. He thought I was supposed to be out of town for the night. I made my wife grab him and follow me downstairs. My heart was racing, but I tried to stay in control. I found his cell phone. Meanwhile, she held on to him tightly. I called the number labeled as home on his phone. A woman picked up, out of breath. She recognized Mark's number and assumed he was going to be late again. I quickly explained the situation, and she was shocked. She said she had suspected something was going on, and that she would come over immediately. I reassured her and gave her my address. I wanted her to be calm and drive safely. After hanging up, I turned my attention back to the two people in my living room. I ordered them to stand in front of the window. Mark tried to resist, but my wife followed my command. I knew it was the perfect time to finally reveal something about myself that neither of them knew. I had a special power that allowed me to implant thoughts into people's minds. I could make them believe things or do things against their will. However, I had made a deal with a secret organization, and they taught me how to fly. In exchange, I stopped using my power for personal gain. I wanted to have genuine connections with people, including my wife. But it was clear that she didn't feel the same way. As we waited for Mark's wife to arrive, I thought about taking some pictures of their affair for evidence. I snapped a few shots. Just as I was finishing, I heard a car pull up. I told my wife to stop and stand by the window, and then I answered the door to meet Mark's wife. I introduced myself and confirmed that Mark was indeed her husband, standing next to my wife. We were all going to have a serious conversation to get to the bottom of this mess. As she was about to ring the doorbell, I opened the door, greeting her. "I take it that you're Mark's wife." "I'm Cliff Derringer, and I believe that is your husband, Mark, standing next to my loving and devoted wife, June." "I wish I could say it was nice to meet you, Cliff. I'm Darlene," she stated, looking at the pair. She strode over to them, looked at Mark, who cast his eyes downward. Then she stood in front of June, who also suddenly found herself inspecting the carpet in shame. She smacked Mark across the cheek with enough force to make his head whip to the side. "Have you no shame? Look at that. She won't even let go of him. What kind of shameless person did you marry, Cliff? Again, that's my fault. It makes him easier to control. Ouch. Why did you do that? What did I do to you? Mark, that's a really dumb question." I caught Mark's eye for just a moment. That was all I needed. "I want you both to tell us the truth, now. You will put no spin on things to make yourselves look better, and you will tell us the whole truth, no half-truths. Let's start with Mark. What is the story here? We first met back in high school." Mark revealed, as the possibility of this affair having started before our marriages entered both Darlene's head and my own. We began dating just after the second semester started in January of our senior year. June and I hung with different crowds, so we hadn't really met before that. When we sat near each other in the second half-year science class that we both took, we hit it off. We were going steady almost from the beginning, and whenever we could make time, we were happily spending it with each other. It was just after Easter break in late March that we went all out in the back seat of my car for the first time. After that, we were inseparable. We almost never even had an angry word for each other. We were completely in love. Then she left. It was the 2nd of May. I will always remember that day. I went over to her house in my car to pick her up for school, and her dad told me that she was gone and not coming back. Then he told me to leave and never ask about her again. I was heartbroken. I thought she ran away from me. I couldn't think of anything I had done to make her angry with me. Of course, I didn't listen to him. I went back many times. begging to be told where June had gone, why she left, who she left with, any detail that would help me find her and talk to her one last time. I knew I would make it right with her because I loved her so much. Her mom and dad wouldn't tell me anything and threatened to call the cops if I went back again. That didn't stop me, and they did call the cops. They told the cops that she left and didn't want to see me again, and they wanted me to quit coming around and harassing them. The cop took me down to the station, and we had a long chat about lost causes and hopeless situations, and how one-sided relationships could turn into dangerous stalker affairs. When my folks got there, he released me with the understanding that I would be arrested if I went back there again. I was crushed, and I was alone and frustrated at every turn. I went through the motions of the last month of my senior year and graduated. After that, I joined the Army for 4 years to distract me from my pain and loneliness. While I was in the Army, I met Darlene and married her, thinking I'd never see June again. When I got out, we moved back here. That was about 6 months ago. It was about 3 months ago when I bumped into June in the grocery store. We had coffee a few days later to catch up. That's when I found out what really happened to June. We kept meeting every week or two, and it was totally innocent, well, maybe a little flirting, but nothing happened until 2 weeks ago. I got off work early and came over one afternoon when you were gone on a trip until late that night, and things got out of control. We both swore that it could never happen again, but it did about a week later again in this house. Today was only the 3rd time. We're both very sorry and didn't mean to hurt either of you. Okay, June, now let's get your side of the story. The first part is just like he said, we met during our senior year of high school. We dated for several months, and graduation was just about a month away. Everything was wonderful until that day. I thought Mom went out on a couple of errands when I took the pregnancy test I bought because I missed my period. Sure enough, I was pregnant. I sat there on the end of my bed crying my eyes out with the stupid test in my hand when my mom walks into my room to see why I'm crying. I panicked and tried to hide the test stick from her, but she saw it. She was upset, but held and comforted me until Dad came home. Dad was not so compassionate, quite the opposite. He went through the roof. After he calmed down a little, he said that he would arrange for a different plan and that we would say nothing to anyone, especially Mark. I said that I couldn't go along with it and that it was my body and my decision. That statement got things heated up again very quickly. After a while, we compromised. I could carry the child to term and put it up for adoption, but I couldn't tell anyone. I had to leave that night for my Aunt Janice's home in South Dakota, which is a 7-hour drive. She had orders that I couldn't call anyone here. I couldn't even call Mark to say goodbye. That was one of Dad's terms that he wouldn't budge on a bit. If anyone found out, he would disown me and throw me out of the house and family. So I inquired, you have a child out there somewhere that you never mentioned to me? No, June replied, lowering her eyes. I went to Aunt Janice's and finished out the school year. Obviously, I couldn't go to any classes that fall, as I would be showing for most of them, and that would have violated our agreement. After I started to show, I became a prisoner in her home. I could have no contact whatsoever with any of my friends from home or any other family member except Mom and Dad, and I was so angry, I didn't even speak to them. My whole world became my aunt, myself, and the child growing within me. I think it was the depression that came over me that caused at least partially me to miscarry when I was about 6 months along. If I wasn't depressed enough before that, I surely was after. After I got over the miscarriage, I returned home, only to find that Mark had joined the Army, and his family had moved away. They only stayed here until he graduated, as his dad already had a job in Ohio. I felt so bad that I just moped around the house for several months, until Dad convinced me to at least get a job to get out a little. I got a job at Dr. Jensen's office and began dating after a few months. I had been dating for about a year when I met you, Cliff. Our life together was great, and you made me forget all about Mark until we ran into each other in the grocery store, like he said. Well, isn't that just sweet and innocent? Snidely remarked Darlene. Such a sweet tale of teenage love, betrayal of others you both promised to love. If this is how you show your love, I should return the favor by giving you a punch. So, you two were having quite the little affair, weren't you? Have either of you cooled down enough from your previous attraction to consider when you were going with this relationship? Were you going to leave us for each other, or what? No. Cliff. June replied quickly, I love you. I didn't want to leave you. Mark looked shocked that he was not her first choice, but said nothing. So, did you think I would be accepting of your affair? Or did you think that you could secretly have your way? Cliff, I didn't want to hurt you. I wasn't sure how long Mark would be with me after all. He and Darlene have a child. So you were willing to hurt me and give Mark what is rightfully mine and mine alone, as long as he wanted. That makes it sound like this could last for years if Darlene and I were blind enough to let it, and he was interested to be in relationships with 2 women regularly. That also leads me to believe that you are emotionally invested in this affair, and that if he was willing to leave Darlene, that you would leave me as well. Does that sum it up, June? I hadn't really thought it through like that. That sounds like you meant to say that you didn't want to leave me unless Mark left Darlene. Shoot, that sounds like you really love me. What do you think, Darlene? Do I have a loving wife, or what? I can't say that I'm any better off, Cliff. Mark and I were dating for about a year when I got pregnant with Joey, our son. Now, I'm thinking that's the only reason he married me. He was obviously still carrying a torch for June. I noticed a surprised look on Mark's face when June said that she didn't want to leave you. Mark, tell us what you were thinking when she said that. Mark began hesitantly. Well, I haven't really thought it through because I don't want to leave you and Joey either, but part of me thought that maybe June and I could give it a try. It just hurt a bit that she professed her love and loyalty to him like that. I guess I thought that she should only feel that way about me. Since I'd never met Cliff, it was easy to pretend that he didn't exist and that June and I could just pick up where we left off back in high school. I'm very confused because I still have feelings for you too, Darlene. I guess they just love each other more than they love us, Cliff. They didn't betray each other, but they sure betrayed us. Both June and Mark started to argue against that statement, but then they realized that Darlene might just be right. After a moment of silence, June finally spoke up. It's a different kind of love. It's not more for you and less for him, or the other way around. The love I have for Cliff is a mature, trusting love, a comfortable love. When I'm with Mark, I feel the innocent love of a teenager, of a first love that never got to run its course. Do you remember when we got married and made a promise in front of our friends and family to love and cherish each other, forsaking all others? You made a vow that you would love only me, and I would love only you, comfortable or not. I don't remember a clause that allowed for flirting with someone else. So what other promises have you broken? Have you always been faithful to me since we got married? Since we got married? Yes, that seems to require some more explanation. Have you ever done anything more than just flirting? Not since we got married. What about when we were dating? Well, when we first started dating, we weren't exclusive. When I started dating you, I was still dating someone else. Bill and I were still spending time together until we agreed to be exclusive, and you knew about Bill. However, I didn't tell you about a couple of times that Bill and I met just to hang out. He was really upset when I broke up with him for you, and I felt bad about it. So, you started lying and cheating on me almost right from the beginning. How many were a couple of times? We only got together 5 times, Cliff, and they didn't mean anything to me. They mean something to me. They mean that you lied to me and took away time that we could have been spending together. No, Cliff, those times were only on nights that you were away for work. We wouldn't have been together anyway. That means that you had to text him to let him know that I wasn't there, and that you were the one who initiated those meetings. Even if you told yourself that he wanted it, you wanted it too. That sounds like premeditated cheating to me. It wasn't like that. Then tell me how it wasn't like that. June hung her head in shame. When did you finally end things with him, and why? We stopped seeing each other 4 months before we got married. It was a way to say goodbye since he got a job in another city. Before that, our last time together was only 2 months after we started dating. It's possible that it could have still been going on whenever a convenient excuse came along, couldn't it? Bill, it's the anniversary of our first date next week. Let's meet up when Cliff isn't home next Tuesday. Or Bill, Cliff and I will be celebrating our anniversary in 3 days, and he'll be out late that night. Why don't you come over and hang out until he gets home? Oh, so I'm getting sloppy seconds. You're turning into quite the sly person, June. Is there anything else you need to confess? June's head shot up, anger flaring in her eyes at the remark. But then she realized that her actions were indeed in line with the sly person, and her anger turned to shame as she dropped her head once again. I have one more confession, Cliff. On the night of my bachelorette party, I got really drunk. Jenny, my maid of honor, joined us when they paid for a second dance, and by that point we were both pretty worked up. I gave him a hug in that room, right there in front of Jenny. I now know that I was right not to trust her. She was always just looking out for her own fun, and not thinking about anyone else or respecting wedding vows. But I guess those vows didn't mean as much to you as I thought they did as much as they meant to me. I'm so sorry, Cliff. I really am. It seems like you're calling this an accident, even though you invited him into our home, our sanctuary, to be with him. I guess that shows who you really hold in high regard, and it definitely isn't me. You brought your lover into our home, where we made years of memories and planned our future together. An accident happens once, June, not 3 times with the possibility of more. This wasn't an accident, it was calculated cheating. Your actions were far from those of a loyal and loving person. So June, but where do we go from here, Cliff? Is there still hope for us? I genuinely do love you. She looked at me desperately, tears streaming down her face. I think with time I may be able to forgive you. But I'll never be able to forget this. It will take a long time before I can even begin to trust you again. Can you handle me watching your every move, constantly checking up on you? Let's not forget that Mark and all other men are out of the picture. You will be under scrutiny because you broke my trust and showed a complete lack of respect for me for us. And you have to genuinely want to make this work. Can you prove to me that you're deserving of the pain you've caused? This has to be something you truly want, more than anything or anyone else. I'm not completely convinced if I want to give this another shot after all the lies and betrayal I've learned about tonight. So, it's not a guarantee that we can repair things. Mark and all other men are out of the question. I will be keeping a close eye on you, and you have to truly want to make it work. Now, it's decision time, which is it, him or me? She hesitated, looking nervously between Mark and me. That's a really big decision, Cliff. Your hesitation tells me a lot. It tells me that you don't love me more than him, and even if you did choose me, it wouldn't be long before you started questioning your decision. Then, one night when you're angry at me, your unfaithful nature will take over, and soon Mark will be receiving calls from a wife who breaks promises to me again. The same wife who claims to love me will stab me in the back as soon as I turn away. Cliff, please give me another chance. She tried to come closer to me, but then she realized her hand was still linked with him, and she stopped, dropping to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Cliff, please. You made your bed, and now you'll have to deal with the consequences. I think you've held him captive long enough, so let go. Her hand dropped, and a sigh of relief escaped Mark's lips, as normal circulation returned to his reddened self-confidence. Darlene, do you know what you're going to do about your marriage yet? No, Cliff, I don't. Turning to the unclothed man in the room, she asked, Mark, it looks like your high school crush is going to be available soon. Do you want to stay with your son and me, or try to make it work with her? It will be like Cliff described, I don't trust you anymore, and you'll have to prove that you're worth keeping around, if you want to. Like he said, you have to want to stay with me a lot. I'm sorry, Darlene. Darlene broke down, placing her face in her hands, slumping down on the couch. Fine, I exclaimed. Now we see everyone's true colors, don't we, Darlene? Some guys, when faced with a situation like this, would get extremely angry. I paused to see the looks on their faces, which was worth the suspense. Some guys would just confront both of you. Other guys would publicly embarrass the both of you. But I'm not most guys. The two of them relaxed somewhat. However, you both will face consequences. June, if you remember, my job made me sign a prenup with you because of the nature of my job. Your first consequence is that you get only a small amount of our joint worth, that's it. If you had lasted a few more years, you'd have got a car, but you couldn't even make it to our 2nd anniversary. The prenup stated that if either of us betrayed our loyalty, we'd face consequences, and for each year of loyalty, after 10 years, we split evenly. Of course, you can have our bed, where you betrayed me, because I sure as heck don't want it. Darlene looked at the 3 of us like we were delusional, and to her we were. She started to say something, but a quick look and a wink from me stopped her. Come with me into the kitchen, I whispered. We left the room while they tried to comprehend what had just happened. A quick version is that I have a unique ability to influence people's thoughts, and they both fully believe that he now has no abilities. I know that seems extreme, but he knowingly and intentionally cheated on his wife and child with a married woman. That is something that I never want him to do again, and this is the best way I can make sure of that. As you can see, though, I have done no actual or physical harm to either of them. I have to admit, the consequences match the actions. She smirked a little. Is that a smile? I sure didn't expect to see one of those today. Yeah, I guess it is a little out of place. It's a nice smile, please don't lose it. Listen, this is going to be a tough time for you and Joey. Promise me that if you need anything or just want to talk, you'll call me. I don't normally go around doing mean-spirited things like this. I'm not a bad guy. I like kids and I want to help you. Who is going to help you? I'm just a guy with a very demanding job. I'll immerse myself in my work for a while until I can process everything. Suddenly, you have gone from a complete family to a single parent with a young child. That's quite a big change. My life won't change as much, I'll be fine. I hadn't thought that far ahead. Wow, I've got some major life changes to make, but my family is close, and I'll get through it with their help. I don't know if I should kick Mark out or whether Joey and I should move out. It would be better to stay for Joey, but I can't afford that house. Can you talk it over with your parents? They know your situation better than I do, and they can think more objectively than either of us can at the moment. Yeah, I'll do that. In the meantime, I would tell him that he's no longer welcome at your place, in no uncertain terms. I'll be ending things with June as soon as you leave. I am serious about wanting to help you and Joey. It could be a little therapy for me too. Hey, no strings attached. I'm not that kind of guy either. We both heard raised voices from the family room and walked back in to see the two of them looking quite angry with each other. Why did you hurt me like that? I can't believe you did that. He made me do it. I had no choice. I didn't see him make you do anything. I did see you hurt me. Shut up, both of you. I interrupted them. Your actions led to this. You are facing the consequences. Mark, I wanted to ensure that you won't be breaking up any more marriages, and you won't. Your actions have caused a lot of pain, but your spouses and child are the ones suffering the most. This is the first time since we've been together that I'm actually glad not to have a child. Cliff, please won't you reconsider? I'll try really hard. You made a decision that should have been easy, assuming you love me as you claim. Instead, you hesitated. Part of you still wanted to have both of us, and that might work for you cheaters, but it won't work for me or Darlene. We know that for any relationship to have a chance, you have to not only love, but trust and respect each other. Maybe you do love us like you think you do, but we don't feel there's any respect or trust left. The reality of what had transpired finally dawned on her, and she fell down, sobbing uncontrollably. I think she was feeling some of the hurt my hurt now. I hope you two will find happiness with each other, because you're getting the chance to find out. Darlene and I are done with you, period. I gave them both a stern look in the eye and told them to forget what I told them about my job and my ability to influence. I told them that they should remember today's events, except that he lost his abilities when I walked in on them. She would still be responsible for his loss. I also told them they should publicly admit their actions whenever anyone asked, and Mark should not fight their divorce. Darlene spoke up. Joey needs to be picked up from the sitter, and I've got to get home. Mark, I don't know where you're sleeping tonight, but it certainly won't be with me. Do not come home tonight. When you find a place to stay, we can make arrangements to get your stuff out. Goodbye. Mark, Cliff. Awful person. With that, she picked up her purse and walked out the door. Darlene, wait. Mark yelled and started to run out the door after her before he remembered his lack of clothing. He turned and ran upstairs to where his clothes were. 30 seconds later, he was mostly dressed and out the door. As the door closed, I said, "Don't just sit there, June. Get dressed and leave. You have 10 minutes or I will escort your unclothed self onto the front lawn." Looking at my watch, I commented, "The clock is ticking, you better get going." She looked at me, pleading again with her eyes. When she saw no sympathy, she slowly rose and went upstairs to pack. 11 minutes later, she came slowly down the steps, sniffling. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? You should have thought of that before you cheated. You are no longer my responsibility. It hurt me to say that, to feel that way, and to look like an uncaring person when I said it. There had already been enough hurt this day. I had to do it that way. It will make a cleaner break for both of us. I called your dad to come get you. He should be here anytime. Oh no, what did you tell him? Did you tell him why? No, I didn't tell him anything. I'll let you tell him after all you did it. I told him to come get you because you won't be staying here anymore, and you needed a place to live. When you get settled, call me to make arrangements to get the rest of your stuff. Cliff, don't you love me anymore? I took a deep breath, saying, yes, I still love you, and that's what makes this hurt so much. I loved you with everything I had. No one can just shut off that intense emotion. I can't live with you anymore, and if you think about it for a while, I don't think you'd be happy living with me either. we'd be living with a constant reminder of this hurtful day. It may hurt more at first, but I believe it would be best to see each other as little as possible for the next year or so. We can begin to heal and get on with our lives. I'll see a lawyer and start the divorce procedure tomorrow. With the prenup, it should be pretty straightforward. Please don't try to fight this. It will only drag out the inevitable and cause us both more pain. She stood there looking up at me with her puffy, sad eyes and sniffled. I could see that she was thinking about what I had said. I wasn't sure if she was beginning to agree with me or was still trying to think of a way to change my mind when the doorbell rang. I expected to see Jim, my father-in-law, on the other side when I opened it, but he brought Mary, her mom, along. June ran into her arms and began to cry openly. If you've done anything to hurt her, I swear you'll be sorry you ever breathed. He was the kind of man that never got upset and could make a threat with no emotion, and you took it a lot more seriously than if he'd got in your face and screamed it. Jim, I haven't touched her. Her suitcases are right there, and she'll tell you what she did when she can stop bawling. You're kicking her out? What did she do to deserve this? I'd rather she told you, as it would hurt too much for me to go through it again. June and her mom were already headed to the car. Jim bent over and picked up her suitcases, keeping one eye on me the whole time. When he stood, he raised one eyebrow, then turned and walked outside. I closed the door and walked over to my recliner and fell into its comforting soft cushions. It was then that I fell apart, just like my marriage had. I cried myself to sleep and only awoke by the sun shining through the bay window the next morning. It was time to get a shower and start the rest of my life. I called my boss and got the day off, then I called the lawyer. I did all the standard stuff, including closing all our joint accounts and reopening new ones. The divorce really did go smoothly and quickly, as she didn't fight it. A month later, I still hadn't heard from Darlene, so I called her. She and Joey moved back in with her parents, who had plenty of room both in their house and their hearts, and put their old house on the market. Mark and June did find a small apartment together, but Darlene seemed to think that they fought quite a bit. Darlene asked me one day about the hypno-suggestion that I gave Mark and June. Is it permanent? Will he always believe that he has nothing down there? Never underestimate the power of denial, I laughed. After a few years and several people, probably doctors, tell him that he does have something there, he may begin to question his belief and dispel the illusion. Now that the pain's not so fresh, I feel a little pity for him. Did you really have to do that? I just smirked. I became an adopted uncle to Joey and a good friend to Darlene. Every couple of weeks we would get together. I would have liked to try for a closer relationship with her, but she wasn't interested. Too many bad memories, I guess. When I attended Joey's 4th birthday party, I noticed a man that I didn't know was also present. I asked Darlene if she had found a new friend, and she said that she had. I told her that I certainly didn't want to get in the way, and she knew how to get hold of me if I was needed. She was married to him 7 months later. I took the new friend at the party as a hint-read blow to the head that it was time I started dating again, and I did. I've been seeing this nice person that I met at the mall for several months now, and I'm beginning to trust them. Thanks to June's cheating ways, I'm a lot more suspicious than I want to be. I really hate that, but Dawn understands she is a really kind person. It's been 14 months since the big day, and I bumped into Mark in the grocery store. How ironic. He told me that thanks to his inability to satisfy June, after a few months, she cheated on him and he kicked her out pretty much like I did. I felt kind of bad for him as I knew just what he was going through. So Mark, do you think you learned your lesson? What lesson are you talking about? Will you ever cheat or get involved with a married woman again? I wouldn't, even if I could. My ex-wife is constantly angry with me and keeps me from seeing Joey as much as I should be. The woman I cheated with cheated on me, and I'm all alone eating TV dinners every night. I can't even. You need to keep going on because Joey does need you, even if you did behave badly a few times. I tell you what, I know some people. People that don't officially exist and they can do some pretty amazing things, but you'll never know they've even seen you. I can't promise anything, but I'll see what they can do for you. On Friday night, have a drink until you fall asleep, hopefully in bed so you won't see them. If they can do this, when you wake up, you'll have a nice surprise down there. You can never reveal a word about this. Promise me? I promise I'll never say a word. Okay, and I'll make a promise to you if I find out that you cheated on your partner again, or got involved with a married woman other than your wife, I'll stop by and cut them off again. Do you understand me? Yes. That won't be a problem, I swear. Thanks so much, Cliff. If this works, I'll owe you a big one. If you ever need anything, I'll be there for you. I'm not kidding, man. You have no idea how much I've suffered. Well, let's see if they can help you out before you go throwing yourself in front of a bus for me. Remember, don't say a word. I waved a finger at him as I walked away. I had already given him the look telling him that when he awoke on Saturday, his equipment would be back, and he'd have a pretty good hangover too. It'd be worth it. About 6 weeks later, I was at the mall one day, and I saw Jim and Mary. I was going to just wave and keep walking, but Jim had other ideas. Cliff, I'd like a word, if I may. I shrugged a reply, it's your call. Mary and I want to tell you how bad we feel about what happened. We feel, well, I feel that it's partly my fault because of the way we reacted to her pregnancy. If we'd done things differently, well, you know. We just wanted to tell you that we're sorry and hope you can forgive our part in this. Jim, Mary, you didn't make her do anything. It's true that you could have been more supportive of her, but I know you thought you were doing the right thing. It's only hindsight that has 20/20 vision. I hold nothing against you, so in my mind, there's no need to apologize. Thanks, Cliff. We appreciate that. I'd also like to tell you that we sent her to a therapist. At first, it was to help her get over the two of you, and then what she did with Mark. She had a lot of things going on in her mind, but she's getting better. For her sake, we'd take it as a personal favor if you could go to one of her sessions. It's not her idea, it's her therapist's. She doesn't even have to be there if you want. I know that it means opening up all the hurt again, but it would help her recovery, and that means a lot to Mary and I. Do you think you could do that for us? I just stared at them for a moment, looking into their sincere and hopeful faces. They were good people, and as good-intentioned people are, they made mistakes. I know I've made them as well. Their friendship still meant something to me, something good. I sighed, let me know when and where. I'll do my best to be there. Their hopeful faces lit up at once, saying, thank you so much, Cliff. We'll call you as soon as she sets it up with Dr. Faraday. Her regular session is on Thursday, that's tomorrow. Can you make it next Thursday at 4? We made arrangements, as well as a person in my job could. As my luck would have it, I was able to meet her there. I entered the office 5 minutes before the appointment, and she was waiting in the anteroom on the couch. She smiled pleasantly, but in a reserved, proper way. It made me think she was very unsure of her standing with me, and she didn't want to push it. I sat uneasily in the chair a few feet from her. Hello, Cliff, she greeted. You're looking well. I saw she was in a matching navy skirt and jacket with a white top underneath. It was very professional, a new look for her. June, you look as good as I've ever seen you. This doctor must be doing you some good. Thank you. I want to thank you so much for coming today. It means a lot to me and my folks. I just don't want you to get your hopes up. This is not going to lead to a reconciliation. I can't live like that. I understand. I prepared myself for that, though I'd be a liar if I told you that a small part of me still holds a bit of hope for us. I guess you heard about Mark and I. Yes, and please don't take it as a snide remark, but I have to say that it didn't surprise me. You have always had a high energy, and not being able to do it with Mark. I figured that you were just a time bomb, waiting to explode. I know what you mean, and Dr. Faraday has helped me see why I did those terrible things to you and Mark. He has helped me with a lot of things, like my pregnancy and miscarriage. We believe that's a big part of why I got out of control. I'm not sure how much I can help you. You seem to have made a lot of progress, and I don't know how I fit in. It's kind of like part of the 12-step program. This session I will admit the bad things I did to you and to us. Then I will address them one by one, apologize, and offer to try and make them right if I can. It's a healing process to get me to forgive myself, so you can, if that's even possible. The 12-step program is for addictions. I carelessly thought out loud. Yes, Cliff, I have an addiction. She cast her gaze downward. After Mark and I broke up, I went crazy. I went to parties most every night and made out with strangers. I hugged coworkers, friends, and the partners of friends. Anyone who looked at me with a smile pretty much got my attention. I was partying a lot, and between the fun and the emotions, I ignored the pain. My folks found out and got me some help. Luckily, I didn't catch anything a shot of medicine couldn't cure. I am much better now. I haven't done anything like that in over 3 months. Silence took over the room as the shock of this revelation showed on my face. Just then the door opened and the doctor ushered us into his office. This is not going to be easy, I told myself, and I was right. An hour later, we emerged from his office, with a cleansed and purged feeling that I can only compare to an emotional reset. "Cliff, I want to thank you again for coming today," she stated as we got off the elevator. "Do you think that we could get a coffee or a meal together?" "I don't think so. Not today anyway. I have had enough turmoil. I want you to know that I feel bad the way things ended with us, especially since you kind of lost control like that. Maybe someday we can be friends, but not today. I'm sorry, I understand, Cliff. I really do. I'd like it if we could become friends a lot." "You mean a lot to me." As we stepped out of the building, she turned to the east, where her car was parked. I noticed and said, "I'm parked this way, so I guess this is goodbye." "Good luck in your recovery." I gave her a quick peck on the cheek and walked towards the setting sun. June watched his silhouette, a little slumped sadly in the cool November chill. A tear ran down her cheek as she watched him walk out of her life.